connectivism. Most of you would have heard this term, but this is a new learning theory which is evolving still, and it has begun in 2005 but still is evolving. So it's a learning theory for today's learners. What I mean by today's learners is that today's learners we know are digital natives. Okay, learning in this digital era where people and students, teachers, all are connected at all time and everywhere, almost everywhere. We are able to connect to each other. Now we know that our teaching is focused towards making the students learn, towards building their, bringing about all-round development in them, concentrating both towards the cognitive aspects, the affective aspects, and the psychomotor aspects. So looking at the development of the abilities in all three dimensions, our teaching concentrates on development of these learners and their learning. So today's learners, as we know, are digital natives. They are born into this world, the world which is real, but which lives virtually, which makes connections and networks virtually. And it is ubiquitous, means all time, they are always connected and everywhere through this digital internet technology. So as teachers, we ourselves who have learned with paper and pencil, and we have attended real-time synchronous classrooms for interaction. We have learned with the blackboards, because with our learning was never possible without the blackboard. And though we were brought up like that and we have learned like that, but still we need to gear up to teach the digital natives today. So in this context, looking at this new learning theory, which is for today's learners, as teacher educators who are preparing teachers, it's a new emerging challenge for all of us. Because we are not digital natives, we have not brought up with this digital technology, but we are teaching learners who are into this digital technology, who live with this digital technology. So we have to prepare our teacher education programs, and it is really a challenge. So we will just look into what are the different aspects of this learning theory, when it emerged, and principles, and what is the role of the teacher when we are trying to adopt this connectivism learning theory, and how is this connected to the earlier learning theories which we have already studied. I think most of us, like when we went through the teacher education program, we never studied about this theory. So whether this theory is based on the earlier theories which we have studied, and what is the lacunae of the earlier theories, on how it is, this connectivism is related to earlier theories, is building on it and emerging as a new learning theory, that we will look into in today's session. Now, in the background of the emergence of this theory, we will just look into first. We know in this postmodern digital era, and especially in this last decade of 10 to 15 years, we have been witnessing rapid and very fast changes or drastic changes. And this amount of change we have never experienced before. So the inventions in the Web 2 technology, that is the internet and the digital technology, we have tremendously, it has changing the picture of everybody's life. And education is no different from this. So there are intensive efforts which are being made all over the world to shift our focus from the real-time teaching learning process, which was synchronous in the classroom. We are shifting towards a virtual online mode of teaching now. Especially during this pandemic, which we have been going through in the past 2.5 years, we have been forced where the institutions are being closed temporarily, and we are forced to take up this online learning. So online learning during this period has emerged as a resource for students and schools and teachers all over the world. Now, in this scenario, looking at a quote from the National Education Policy 2020, this policy also recognizes the significance of leveraging these advantages of the Web 2 technology. I would like to quote from this NEP 2020, which says that the existing digital platforms and the ongoing ICT-based educational initiatives must be optimized as well as expanded to meet the current and the future challenges in realizing the goals of education. Now, we all know that today the educational objectives which we have in our educational programs are focusing on development of higher order thinking skills. They're also focusing on the development of the right attitudes, development of the right values, and also different soft skills necessary to lead a quality life, and also to develop a contributing individual to the society. So it's not an individual who just draws from the society, but an individual who is able to contribute to the development of the society as well as the world. So the acquisition of these objectives of education depends mainly on the process of the teaching learning. And this process of teaching is, we know, based on the learning, based on the process of the learning, based on the understanding of the learning, based on the explanations given about how the learning goes on. And all these are concentrated or theorized in our learning theories. So learning theories, looking at their evolution, they have progressively evolved. Earlier theories were broad theories that tried to explain.
Ma'am, the slide is not moving. It's still in the title slide.
One second. Now?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
It's not movable slide.
Same, madam.
No, madam. Slide is not moving.
Ma'am, you double click on one slide, ma'am. Means in one.
Has it changed?
Yeah, now it's moving,
Yes,
ma'am.
yes.
Yeah, now it's moving.
Yeah. So the learning theories, as we were speaking, have been evolving progressively. And earlier theories limited themselves to explain the different ways that learning would occur, and to more specific ones who are the recent ones. But those also are limiting themselves to the different types of learning they are designed to explain. Like constructivism concentrates on what type of learning where it says that learners create their own knowledge and knowledge is not to be transmitted to them. Okay, so these are the learning theories which have progressively evolved. So these changed educational objectives and instructional methods is a recent feature. So this teaching goals nowadays is development of open-mindedness, and then divergent thinking or convergent thinking, and then effective questioning skills are to be developed in students, and then effective teaching learning. And then more importantly, when we look into the content areas, the NEP also is concentrating on integration of different subjects and content areas instead of teaching them as specialized subjects. So in this context of these teaching goals, our instructional methods also are changing over from the earlier teacher controlled methods and huge classroom oriented group teaching methods to personalized teaching methods and individualized learner controlled teaching methods like inquiry based learning. And we have different models of teaching which have been developed based on this principle, and then constructivist strategies. And with incorporation of the technology, we have this blended learning technologies or techniques which are leading to a deeper and more sustained learning among students. And they are transferring to new, which this learning, the students are more effectively able to transfer to new situations and solution of new
Right.
problems. Now, what's happening to the learners now? The first thing is change. Okay, the change now is scarcity to abundance. Earlier, if we take our generation, there was scarcity in sources of the knowledge. Like if we have to look into what knowledge and where to get the knowledge, we had to go in search of it. We had to go in search of different sources, like different books, people who are authority in those subjects. But now it is not so for the today's students. They have different tools in abundance to them, and whatever knowledge they want to seek, it is in the tips of their fingers. This is one thing which has been changing for the learners. And the other thing now is the interplay of the learner and the organization. And nowhere is more important than knowing how. How to know is not that important as where to know in this situation today. And when competence and knowledge are resting on a continuum, it's being relevant, it happens as soon as one plugs into a network. So anywhere, the competence the student has to have is to just know how to plug into a network and know how to search for that particular knowledge. So this information seeking behavior is very important now among learners. I would like to quote from what Bill Gates says. He says there is a failure of learning and the educational institutions now. He says America's high schools. Just imagine if he's speaking about this, about American high schools, which are technologically more advanced, so to say, nowadays. He's saying that these schools are becoming very obsolete. By obsolete, he says, he doesn't just mean that they are flawed or they are underfunded. By obsolete, he means that the high schools, even when they are working as designed, means even so-called very effective schools, they are not teaching all our students what they need to know today. So this is a quote from Bill Gates. Now, what were the learning theories? Learning theories which evolved over a period of time, they took into the consideration very complex factors which were involved in learning in an effort to explain how learning occurs. We know theories always try to explain why it occurs or how it occurs. And through this explanation, we try to control what will happen in future. So that is what is the function of theories. So learning theories which have evolved have tried to put in effort to explain how learning occurs. Now in the early 20th century, we all know there are three popular learning theories. That is behaviorism, then cognitivism and constructivism, which itself was said to be quite recent. Now these learning theories were developed in a time where learning was not much influenced by information and communication technology. We all know behaviorism evolved during the time when the modern ICTs were not there. So these theories which are established nowadays fail to address learning that occurs outside the individual. That is where learning can be stored and also can be manipulated by technology, which is happening during these recent times. So these learning theories that describe learning principles and processes, but they should be reflective of the underlying social environments. Now, today, the social environment, as soon as we say social environment, it is not just the physical social environment, it is the virtual social environment which takes most of the time of today's students. So to what extent do these existing learning theories of these behaviorism and cognitivism and constructivism meet the needs of today's learners? And how much do they anticipate the needs of learners of the future? Now, what are the existing learning theories missing? The first thing, the existing theories which we are concentrating nowadays is missing this aspect of rapidly evolving knowledge. Today's knowledge and learning, which we say is more recent, may in a very few days become obsolete. So knowledge is changing at a very fast pace. As important, I don't say it is not important, but it is not as important as being able to continue to learn. So that is what we say, today's education should not knowledge to students, should concentrate on teaching learning to learn. They should learn how to learn. So being able to continue to learn is the important aspect. Now the core foundations of learning is also shifting. Then there is an increased interplay between the organization and the individual. The theories state that learning occurs inside a person. That is what is stated by the earlier theories. External learning. Okay. So learning, which was perceived as an event, not as the actual process of being competent through completing the learning task required for learning. Okay. So, but nowadays, these new theories are concentrating on not just saying that learning is an event, but instead it is the student being competent to complete the learning. So they assume that once a student goes through and completes competently a learning task, then the required learning will happen. Now, looking at these earlier theories, we know behaviorism, said that the desired outcomes are created through the response and the stimuli chain. Okay, so this was about behaviorism. And cognitivism looked at computer learning like a computer model where there were inputs which were required and management of the short-term memory by the learner, and whatever was being encoded could be taken out for long-term retrieval. This is how learning was looked after in cognitivism. And coming to the so to be said new theory of constructivism, constructivism propounded that learners create knowledge in the process of understanding experiences. So it was the learning experience or the learning event which was important, under which the teacher facilitated and created the learning experience so that students would create knowledge. I will not go in detail with them. So learners under constructivism are not said to be empty vessels, but were said to be active meaning makers. And these are the proximal development which the teacher had to create. That is what is learning. And the other aspect was the more knowledgeable other, where the teacher was said to be a person who was more knowledgeable than more knowledgeable other. So facilitating of learning, creating the learning environment, and mechanisms for scaffolding of learning is important under constructivism. Okay, so connectivism does not evolve leaving these old theories, but it is built upon the principles of all these three theories. Now, this modern learning theory called this connectivism has emerged to meet the 21st century digital learning environment. Okay, so this is a theory which was evolved in this digital learning environment. The person, George Simons, wrote a book in 2005 called Connectivism, Learning as Network Creation. So this network creation is very important in cognitivism. So his book, which he titled as Connectivism, Learning as Network Creation, was written in 2005. And another book by Downs, he also wrote a book called An Introduction to Connective Knowledge in 2005. So initially, these two books garnered the increasing attention in the blogosphere in 2005. So an extended discourse has ensured in and around the status of connectivism as a learning theory for the digital age since 2005. Now here, CARE in 2007 identifies two purposes for the development of a new theory. Okay, so why is this new theory of connectivism? What is the purpose of the evolvement of this theory? The first purpose, he says, that the new theory builds on older theories without discarding them. So connectivism is building based on the older theories of learning. And the second purpose is the new developments which have occurred, which the older theories no longer explain. So with these two purposes, we move into this new theory of connectivism. So with this backdrop of this new theory, just to point out, so self-organization of learning, social networking, and networks which are themselves forming small worlds and where learning is become decentralized, and learning which is occurring within these nebulous environments, and under the backdrop of the capacity to know more becoming more important than what is already known. Earlier, it was not like that. Once you say somebody completes a course, then we know how much of knowledge he knows, whether he is at, we also had the minimum level of learning, which says he has gained 80% of the competence. He has so competence were listed out, and then that much of competency, how much that the student has acquired, was evaluated. But now in this backdrop, capacity to know is important than what is already known. And now learning is becoming more learner controlled and learner driven. Okay, so in this backdrop, connectivism is a learning theory for the digital age, which was developed by George Simons. He asked an important question. The question was, how do the practices of the teacher change in the networked environments where information is readily accessible? This question all of us have to ask for ourselves. Okay, putting ourselves in the place of the educator, how many of us have changed our teaching learning practice? Okay, and in this environment where students are always in contact with each other and where information is readily accessible to them, okay, how much have we changed in our teaching practices? That was the question he has asked. So this new developed theory of learning, which started in 2005, now continues to be and also is being developed into a learning theory for the digital age. So I don't say that this development of the theory is final. It is still evolving. There are research which is going on into this theory yet. So this theory basically states that learning occurs through connections within networks. So the basic presumption of the theory is that learning occurs through connections within networks. Now this attempts to approach learning and knowledge in the context of the technological development in the 21st century, because the impact of these technological achievements on learning and knowledge cannot be ignored. Now, this theory says that knowledge is distributed across a network of connections. So knowledge, they say, is distributed. Where is it distributed? It is distributed across a network of connections. So learning will consist of two things: ability to construct knowledge and ability to span these networks. So what is learning now? Basic definition of learning itself, they are trying to change. They are saying that what is learning? Learning is the ability to construct knowledge and the ability to span the networks where knowledge is being distributed. Now, connectivism is a learning theory that recognizes that technology has impacted every aspect of society and also more so the educational process. It's a theory which explains how internet technologies have created new opportunities for people, new opportunities to learn, and also new opportunities to share information across the World Wide Web and among ourselves or themselves. So here knowledge is not just accumulation of or trying to learn from somewhere. Knowledge is also where learners involve themselves in also creating and sharing the information in the networks in which they are a part of. So these technologies which include web browsers, search engines, emails, wikis, online discussion forums. So these are the networks where they can learn and also they can create and share their own knowledge. Social networks, YouTubes, blogs, and many other educational tools also enable the users to as well learn the information and also share the information which they know. So connectivism presents itself as a pedagogical approach. The approach that affords learners ability to connect to each other via social networking as well as collaboration tools. I will not go in detail with what are the different digital collaboration tools or social networking tools, because I think all of them have been dealt with by a few of the experts already. On a network of people. So if we have to learn, we have to rely on a network of people and increasing technology to store, access, and retrieve knowledge and motivate its use. Okay. So what is connectivism as described in his book by Simons? It's a learning theory for today's learners and today's organizations, where information is changing quickly. Connections to stay current is really important. It means we have to keep on updating our knowledge and stay current always. And learning is actuated knowledge. What do we mean by this term actuated knowledge? This term not just knowledge, but the term actuated knowledge is being used in connectivism. Now, actuated knowledge means that not just inert knowledge where we just learn and after the knowledge is acquired, it is over. Instead, actuated knowledge is the knowledge which enables the students to operate, enables the student to move, enables the students to work, okay, which motivates him and causes him to use that knowledge in his life. That is what is actuated knowledge. So learning, according to connectivism, is actuated knowledge. And learning, according to connectivism, is which can reside even in non-human appliances, that is in a network. And learners, they assume in connectivist theory that they have to develop new meta skills. What are these meta skills? They are skills in evaluating the usefulness of information. So we always tell our learners that when you are seeking for information or searching for information in any network, then you should be skilled enough to evaluate the usefulness of information. And also they should be having the skills of managing the information which they get. So according to this theory, the new skills required for learners is evaluating the usefulness of information and also being able to manage the information and searching for means of managing this information. Managing information is to store information and then retrieve it from these appliances whenever they require and then use it whenever they require. Pattern recognition and connection creation also is important according to this theory. And there is a interplay between the organization and the learner. Now, according to this theory, learning is a process of plugging into new knowledge sources. Okay, I will not go into what are the different knowledge sources. So basically, they describe technological tools only for searching of these knowledge. Then emotions and cognition, that is both affective as well as cognitive dimensions, play a role in actualization of the knowledge. Then functioning requires acting blindly as information is only revealed as action is taken. Now, the idea behind connectivism, that knowledge exists everywhere. The word ubiquitous is used for this in connectivism. So ubiquitous means that knowledge is existing everywhere and is available at all times. So that is the basic presumption of connectivism, which says that knowledge exists everywhere and is accessed and organized by the learner. George Simon says that the connections that enable us to learn more are more important than our current state of knowing. Okay. Now, Simon's brief conclusions on his views on connectivism. He says our ability to learn what we need for tomorrow is more important than what we know today. This is a very important aspect in connectivism. The real challenge for any learning theory, according to him, is to actuate the known knowledge at the point of application. So when we are speaking in connectivism, we don't just speak about knowledge. We are speaking only about the actuated knowledge. That is, at the point where it needs application, it has to be applied. That is the skill which the learner has to gain. When knowledge is needed but not known, then the ability of the learner to plug into the different sources to meet the requirement becomes a very vital skill in connectivist theory. So as teachers, we are moving into a teacherless learning situation where we are trying to develop this vital skill of plugging into those sources whenever required, which we have to give to our students. So as knowledge continues to grow and evolve, access to what is needed is more important than what the current things learner learn. Now, the network of connectivism. What do we mean? We have been using this word network all through when we are, as soon as we have said connectivism, we say learning and knowledge resides in networks. It can be small networks or vast global networks. So what do we mean by this term, the networking in connectivism? Now, network is nothing but connection between different entities. We know this. So pieces of knowledge and the sources of these knowledge are to be connected to create an integrated whole through these networking. Now they use this term called nodes. So computation exists because some nodes of information are more valuable than the other nodes. There are strong as well as weak connections, may be equally as valuable at some point. So the ability to retrieve information, use connections is the key foundation of connectivism. And before itself, we spoke about learning residing outside oneself in the changing networks. So presence of connections is more important than what they already know. Then change in network is not necessarily under our control according to connectivism. The most important thing is discerning the relevance of information and the criticalness of changes. Now, connectivism is a theoretical framework for understanding learning. So it's a theory where they're trying to give us a theoretical framework within which this framework we can try to understand the process of learning in this digital age. In connectivism, the starting point for learning occurs in knowledge being actuated through the process of a learner, being connected and also feeding information into a learning community. So learners are forming a learning community through networking, and then they are not only learning from these networks, but they are also feeding in information into this learning community. According to Simons, a community is the clustering of the similar aspects or areas of interest, which will allow for interaction, which will allow for sharing, They will allow for dialoguing between the participants there in the network and also allow them to think together. So that is what is a learning community, according to Simons. In this connectivist model, a learning community is described as a node. So what is the term which is used for a learning community? The learning community is described by the term node, which plays always a part of a larger network. So different nodes or different learning communities are again interconnected into a global network. Nodes arise out of the connection points that are found in a network, and a network comprises of more than two nodes, two or more nodes which are linked in order to share the resources. So each nodes have their own resources which they share on this common networking sites. And nodes, according to Downs, can vary in their size and also the strengths and their ability to contribute to the networking, depending on the concentration of information and also the number of individuals who will be navigating in a particular single node. Okay. So one thing we are to know that the learning community is used or called by the term node here. Okay, that is important. And then different small learning nodes are again connected internally, and then the size and strength of each of the nodes which are connected can vary. According to connectivism, knowledge is distributed across an information network and can be stored. It can be stored in a variety of digital formats. And here in connectivism, they say that learning process is cyclical because learners will connect to a network, they will share, and they will find new information. Based on their beliefs, they will modify this basis of new learning and will then again connect to a network to share the realization, and they will again try to find new information once more. So learning here, according to connectivism, is a cyclical process. Learning connectivism also considers as a knowledge creation process. Here we say knowledge is not just being acquired, but learning is a process where knowledge is being created and not only being consumed. So once personal learning network is formed on the basis of how one connects to learning communities, and they are organized by the learners themselves. So the learning communities and the different networking and nodes are organized by the learners themselves. The Simon asserts that the ability to see the connections between different fields, ideas, and concepts is a core skill which is required. That is what we are moving into, an integrated form of knowledge, integrated subjects instead of looking into specializations in subjects. So in connectivism also, the Simon says that it is the ability to see connections between different ideas. Okay. If you have looked into the term, we know we have already led different models of teaching. Under that, we have this synetics model of teaching. So synetics, the term itself, which William Gordon gave way back somewhere around 40 to 50 years back itself, he also in this synetics model tried to use metaphors and similes, and metaphors were used to make connections, and then analogies were used. If you remember, in synetics model of teaching, we use analogies where apparently to look at many ideas may look irrelevant, but when they try to put them together, there is a new idea evolving. So that was attempted even in synetics also. So that is what this integration of two apparently looking two different things into one, that idea is being propounded in this theory. Learning and knowledge are set to rest in diversity of opinions. So diversity of opinions is given more importance in connectivism. Since information is constantly changing, So the validity and the accuracy of the information may also change over time. Okay, that is being believed here. So they don't believe that knowledge is permanent. So knowledge and the accuracy of the knowledge keeps changing as we go on learning new things. Connectivism stresses on two important skills when they are contributing to learning. One skill is the ability to seek out current information. See here, they don't just use the word information, they say current information. So the skill which the learner has to possess is the ability to see current information and also the ability to filter out the secondary and the extraneous information, because there's vast information which is available on the networks, and the student should have the ability to filter out the extraneous information and just gather whatever information that they require. So simply being put, the capacity is now to know is more critical than what is actually known. Ability to make decision on the basis of information that has been acquired is more integral to the learning process. So this thing is more important when we are looking into the principle of connectivism. What it says is it is not just gaining information, but what is more important and what teachers should make the students more skillful is making decisions based on the basis of the information that they have acquired. So Simon highlights different factors also that inform the development of this new learning theory. He says how we teach, how we design our curriculum, the space and the structure of learning, and the manner in which we foster and direct the critical and creative thought in our redesigning of education. Okay, so a multitude of elements could change with the introduction of this new theory. So with the advent of this new considerations in instructional design and implementation, universities and especially we teacher educators should take the task of adapting our instructional approaches, and that has to be seriously considered now. Utilization of this information technology in the classroom is becoming a feature of instruction nowadays. Now, where is the compatibility of this connectivism in today's educational classrooms and today's formal education? There are three predominant pressures which are influencing and also instigating this change in the dissemination and retrieval of information. Each of them are fundamentally altering the formal educational landscape of today. What are these three predominant pressures? The first thing is the millennial learners. The learners' needs of today's millennium are not sufficiently being met by the traditional training models of instructions which we are utilizing today in today's formal classrooms. The second pressure is information growth has necessitated new means by which to navigate and also to filter the information which is available. And the third pressure is advancing technologies are increasingly enabling today's learners to connect to one another. So because of this technology, they are able to connect to one another and to connect to different knowledge networks of their own making. Okay. So these are the three important changes which are bringing pressure on the formal educational landscape to change itself. Now, Varkan in 2006 sees that connectivism fits exactly at the level of pedagogy and curriculum rather than the level of theory, since people still learn in the same way, though they continue to adapt to the changing technological landscape. So learning is moving away from classroom groups and a tutor to online networks and important nodes on these networks. Okay. So learners might miss out on a layer of critical engagement as their choice of mentor. See, learner has a choice of mentor, and then they could confirm rather than challenge views and opinions. There are different principles of connectivism which are determining the different strategies which we have to use. So the different strategies are determined partly on the subject matter and also partly on the nature of the learners. So connectivist principles have new roles for the teacher. The first role the teacher has to take is to assist each learner to build and make relevant connections. So what is the role of the teacher here? Role of the teacher is not just transmission of knowledge. Instead, the teacher has to assist the learner to build relevant connections in their learning networks. So building of the learning network and assisting learners to build those networks is an important function of the teacher. And then directing students to appropriate resources and other experts is the second duty of the teacher. And the important duty is to create the experience that will stimulate continual learning. These are the functions and the changing roles of the teachers, where teachers are moving towards becoming facilitators of knowledge and then facilitating development of different skills and different information seeking behavior among students. So there is a need to fully understand the complexities involved in this new role as facilitators of knowledge building. So teachers are facilitators of not just knowledge transmission, but they are facilitators of building up of knowledge in different digital platforms, where students are able to create their knowledge and also share their knowledge and continuously be a part of knowledge creation. Here, the role of the teacher will not only change, but may disappear altogether. This term, where I think most of us have already heard the term teacherless teaching or teacherless learning. Okay, so maybe the role of a teacher will also, I don't know, by looking into the different developments happening in educational technology today, the role of teacher may be that of a person who will create these learning networks, a person who will be able to put information on these learning networks. Maybe the role of the teacher will be changing to that than what role which we play in our today's classrooms. So people can move from a learning environment controlled by the tutor and the institution to an environment where they direct their own learning. So students are directing their own learning. So it is learner-driven learning. They'll be able to find their own information, create knowledge by engaging in networks away from the formal setting which we are having today. So knowledge, they are not only sharing, they're also creating in a network away from the formal classroom school settings of today. So they still communicate with others, but their personal interests and preferences, rather than the institutional requirements and choices, are main drivers for their engagement with the more knowledgeable others in their learning. So here, this term which is being used in constructivist theory also is being used in connectivism, where they don't use the word teacher again here. Instead, the person who is an expert in that particular subject area is just said to be a more knowledgeable other. So teacher is an MKO. A student is a person who knows a little less than the teacher, and then will benefit from the more knowledge which the MKO possesses. So the networks in which people communicate can be either small or it can be vast, but the main characteristics for support for these networks is to support knowledge development. Okay, they should be diverse, they should be open, they should be autonomous, and they should be connected at all times. So the term knowledge development is very important. Now, looking at a vision given by Ehrlich in 1971, okay, in 1970s itself, he used this idea of community webs. But these community webs were local community webs which were connected in real time, connected physically. But the same idea of these community web is being utilized now in these connectivist theories, but only thing is that we are moving into online networking. Online networks come together as interest groups of autonomous participants, but Illich envisaged this web in community settings and aimed at bringing local people together with learners and people with knowledge. But this is one thing which is, when we are thinking of networking in a global setup, what do we say, maybe a hitch here is that they will not be focusing on the local cultural aspects, because we say when we are teaching the students and when learning is happening, we are also to look into the local cultural setup also. Maybe that will be evaded when we look into this online community webs or learning networks. So online networks may open and may facilitate connection, but local culture and values cannot be incorporated all that easily, as because the online networks are global and they have diverse participants from different cultures and then different interests and different abilities and different needs, different levels of motivation. Each of them will be bringing their own ideas and background to the forefront. So these principles of connectivism, I will not again, because most of them have been covered before. So how do we teach in this connectivist environment? See here, we are not using the word teachers. Instead, Simons uses the term developers of e-learning. So who are teachers? Teachers are to be involved as developers of e-learning. They propose that the increasing influence of the internet and online connectedness of people will have implications for the educational practice. So the rapid development of technology and the exponential growth in the use of internet, we know how many users are newly logging into the internet, along with the Web 2 technology and the mobile developments. They are making new and different educational structures and settings a possibility today. So online and face-to-face networks that people build throughout their lives will provide expertise and knowledge in addition to the guidance that we as online tutors can also provide. So learners will be at the center of the learning experience rather than the teacher. This we have already moved on even in our previous constructivist theory. We are moving over from the teacher-centered approach to a learner-centered approach. Learners here will be instrumental in determining the content of learning, in addition to deciding the nature and the level of communication and who can participate in the network. So implementing these connectivist learning strategy in a traditional classroom can bridge the gap between the needs of the digital natives and that of the education system. So there are 5 strategies for implementing this connectivism in the traditional classrooms of today. One thing is shifting from teacher-centered to student-centered pedagogy. The second thing is incorporating technology with readily available devices, then never providing information that students can themselves get access to. So teachers should concentrate on this, should give special attention to this, where they will not attempt to provide information which students can access for themselves. Then incorporating and practicing and utilizing technology networks, then incorporating and practicing and utilizing social networking. So these are the 5 strategies which the teachers have to build upon in their traditional classrooms. There are different softwares and different applications available for undertaking different various activities of the teaching learning process. I will not go in detail with the different, because we have our time limit. So what are the applications and all that, I will not go into. So what our teacher education programs have to gear up to is, according to Kortigan and Kezels, they say that it is difficult for teachers to transfer what they learn in their preparation programs and professional development to the classroom, because teachers' preconception about teaching and learning is a disconnect of the theory to the realities of the classroom. So our teacher education programs, what we theoretically teach them in our programs, are quite different from the realities of today's classrooms. Okay, so that we have to look into and then see that what we teach them should be updated, and then should show them the reality of the future. So they should keep these aspects of connectivism and also the needs of the digital native learners when we are designing and implementing our teacher education programs. So teachers also have to develop and then deepen their teaching expertise. Teaching expertise here doesn't just mean the knowledge of the subject matter. Our expertise also in using the different technologies which are available for communication and available for building up of learning communities and networks before taking up teaching as our career, and also continue to do so and continue to learn the new technologies, because we know that the digital technology and the web technology is here with us. And then we will have to go through the rapid advancements which will come about in this technology, and we will have to be a part of utilizing them, because we are teaching a generation of learners who are born into with this technology. Okay. So looking ahead, educators should continue efforts to build the capacity of our trainees to provide an education that will prepare students for the world they will live in, that is the digital world they will live in future. And educators must also abandon the outmoded approaches and also invest more in practice-based approaches to professional learning for trainees in our program. We should take decisions about the curricular structure and focus for building a digitally competent connectivist teachers for future. And using the word teachers also is a mistake here when I speak about in this theory. So more digitally competent, more knowledgeable others, or e-learning developers. Permanent mechanism and structures embedded in the institutional culture that support our trainees for their career in a digitally connected world. That is what we have to look forward to. I think with this, I would like to conclude that connectivism is a new learning theory. It is a theory for this digital age and is no longer defined by individual knowledge acquisition, retention, and retrieval, but rather through interaction with a variety of knowledge sources, including the internet and also the learning management systems. So connectivism believes that the power of learning through network is precisely because they demand collaboration and communal form of knowledge building. So our programs need to train our future more knowledgeable others to be competent in adopting these connectivist-based teaching strategies. And as teacher educators, we first of all have to gear up to this purpose. Okay. I think with this, I would like to just conclude that connectivism continues to play an important role in the development and emergence of new pedagogies, where the control is shifting from the tutor to an increasingly more autonomous learner. So teachers being an integral part and designers of the teaching learning process, it's high time that we adopt different strategies that are based on these connectivism theory. And we should be able to integrate the technologies which are available, and willingness to embrace this change is a major requirement for successful connectivist approach. I think with this, I would like to conclude, and any discussions, any clarifications if somebody needs.
I'm thinking this teacher and learner, there is teacher versus learner. The world is divided in that way when we are thinking in terms of learning and teaching. But when we think ourselves as a student, so this equation is a little bit different. one equation is teacher versus student, and another equation is teacher itself, himself or herself.
As a learner.
Yeah, as a learner. So in that context, when we are thinking that actualization or self-constructivism of knowledge or whatever it is. So for example, if listening this 1 hour lecture, if I just sum up with 3 points or 5 points within this year, and I actualize this thing for myself, then I try to continue this teaching process or giving this kind of same knowledge to the students. So then it will be little bit something abstract or very personal kind of thing. Then here is a very limitation is there to behave like a student when you are teacher, because you have to, if you like or don't like, but you have to carry some kind of necessary or unnecessary thing for yourself. So when we think in terms of senior learner or junior learner, then maybe this is something a little bit different. But when you're teacher in this equation, so I think there is 2 equation and divided in the teacher versus student or learner.
Yeah, here that is what under this theory we don't use the term as a teacher at all, sir. That is what we say. It is nothing like teachers are also. We also don't say that they are learners. The term used here in connectivism is information seekers, and then learning is a skill where or behaviors or skills which we have to develop in them is that's what we call the information seeking behavior. They should know where to search for, and then which learning networks to get connected to. And then it's not just learning here. Learners also are knowledge creators and also knowledge people who can share knowledge on the learning networks. That is what this theory propounds actually.
Yes, about the theory I understand, but is another constant you have to give this theory. But when you are using applying on your own life as a student or whatever.
I think your teacher's role, as it has been mentioned, that is MKO. It is more knowledgeable others. That role has to be discharged by a teacher than the transformer or transmitter of knowledge. Since it is an altogether knowledge construction process, that is why the connectivity speaks about the teacher role is altogether different than normally what we perceive.
Yeah, the teacher also should become a part of the learning community, a part of the learning network and nodes which the students form.
Yeah, Sheela ma'am, good afternoon.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Dr. Sudha.
Yeah, ma'am, in your concluding slide, you highlighted even last but one. That is according to Kortengen and Kessels, they said that it is difficult to transfer what they learn is that, like, their participate program or pre-service program, they are not exposed to this kind of thing. Yeah. And if you just say that, adopt the instructional strategies, embrace them, and try to, have all the information that is required and acquire or whatever. So just make a slogan like this, I think it may not work. So what I feel is, you like we are attending RCA program like this and some other increment or incentive programs like, these kind of programs, if you make it mandatory, and even the curriculum, if they include something that is required, really required for the teacher trainees, let them learn in this stage itself. And also even they, after becoming the teachers, they let them attend these kind of programs wherein they really acquire these skills and make it possible. Otherwise, we just attend these kind of programs and we forget and we just go and try to do the as usual things in future. So you will have to make it as a rule or something wherein they can get these kind of new learning theories like connectivism and things like that. That would help the people. That's what I feel.
That is entirely true, Dr. Sudha. One thing is, and then whatever we have learned today, now just imagine 2.5 years back, none of us, I don't say none of us, but most of us for that matter, it was not very easy if somebody said start an online class and then to not only one-to-one, having 20 to 30 students together and especially in schools, if you see, but our teachers were quite competent enough. They underwent, and then most of them, even senior teachers for that matter, who were more experienced and then who were not willing to even log into and have an email, also were involved in these online classes now. And today you ask them to take a class, they will ask us, which digital platform do you want me to use? Whether you want me to take a class on Zoom, whether you want me on a conference call. Okay, so I think for that
something like this where it becomes very, very mandatory for them and indispensable, like no other go. So otherwise they will not learn. We will not learn. So all of us we learned only it is because of the the situation demanded.
We were forced to.
Forced to do it. So that kind of situation you will have to create and make it as a rule, something like that. That will work.
That's what we were even just discussing about our teacher education programs, not only just giving them knowledge, that attitude of accepting changes and then incorporating those changes, because even today, whatever this RC program has given, like previous sessions, I just saw there were different resource persons handling on different digital tools for evaluation, different digital tools for teaching and communicating, collaborating and all this. Maybe one year or another 6 to 7 months from now, if we look back, maybe those digital tools also will become outdated. So technology is changing so fast. So our teacher education programs, I think, should build that attitude for willingness to incorporate these whatever technological changes which comes in. That has to be put in our teacher trainees. So just imagine ourselves what we learned in our teacher education programs. I think most of them, what we speak about today under inclusive strategies, and then these educational technology we learned was very basic if we consider what we are learning today. So that willingness to adopt to these changes, I think that should be brought in our trainees.
In addition to that, I think in UGC recently they have brought about, because now there is more discussion going on, more than blended learning, there is flipped classroom learning, which has been asked for, wherein the UGC has brought a norm saying, stating that 60-40 scheme, where 60% they can attend the class and the 40% they can just get it online, and where they can come to the knowledge, and then further they can come to the college and validate that knowledge based on what they have worked on. I think this is a good initiative based on this particular connectivism theory, I believe so, ma'am.
UGC also is trying to bring in technology also, and then they are also even now saying that 40% of the classes could be in higher education institutions can be handled online. That is a good initiative, right?
That's true. Maybe that flipped classroom mode would be a better initiation from UGC from their side, I believe so, ma'am.
Flipped classroom, and then different blended learning approaches also could be used. I think with this discussion, we will end today's session.
Yes, ma'am. Shall we have a vote of thanks?
Sure.
Nobody's have. Yes, madam. Yes, thank you, ma'am. So, a warm and cherished afternoon to our most valued resource person, Dr. Sheela, madam, dear participants, and it is my privilege to propose vote of thanks on behalf of UGC-HRDC Mysore. I give a really heartfelt vote of thanks to Dr. Sheela ma'am, who has spent her busiest time and have enlightened our mind and shown us a new path on new learning theory, that is connectivism. And it was really a very nice session, ma'am. And we had a great opportunity to hear your thoughts. And this is definitely encouraging us. And we will use this in our future events. Thank you all. Once again, UGC-HRDC Mysore staff members, all the staff members Professor Praveen sir, course director, and Professor Manjunath, director. Once again, I would like to say thanks to all, and we are all most grateful to the resource person, Dr. Sheela ma'am. And on behalf of all the participants, I once again thank you, ma'am, and it is a great pleasure. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Maria. And it was a really good opportunity for me also to have a constructive time and then meet most of my friends also here on this networking. Okay. Thank you and bye all of you.
Thank you.
And I also thank HRDC
Thank you, madam.
from Mysore University. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, madam.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, madam.
Thank you, and bye.
Thank you, madam.
How is it?